Hi, and welcome to this week's Flowers for Dreams DIY workshop. My name is Allie, and I'm excited to take you on this adventure of making a beautiful ombre arrangement with subtle hues that kind of go from this beautiful kind of peachy yellow tone all the way into a soft purple. It's going to be lovely. I hope you guys enjoy. We have just a beautiful collection of flowers with this Nandina as our greenery. It has just the subtle tips of red in some areas and to lime green with a little bit darker hue of green in others. I know it's going to be a surprise on what you guys get at home, but it is such a fun branchy greenery, especially to use in fall. I'm excited that we have it. We also have these cute little peach spray roses that have just the softest peach tone and a little bit more of a creamy tone on the outside. They are just such little cuties. Then we have two different kinds of cremones this week. We have a beautiful salmon cremone that has a lovely yellow undertone to it. And we have a quicksand cremone that has a little bit of those yellow tones, soft sand tones, but also a peach-ish tone as well. They're just quite lovely. Chef's kiss, if you will. Then we have these caramel antique carnations that have just that kind of a little bit of a tint, I don't want to say brown because brown reminds us of like flowers that are dying, but no, it's antique is really perfect to describe it, but it has this soft pink tone and then a little bit of that antiquing that really creates an old world kind of feel or old look to them, which is so cute. And then we have these lovely amnesia roses that actually start out with a more of a green petal on the outside, which is so fun. And the more that you clean them up, you'll see a little bit more of that purple, and of course, as it opens. So if you don't like that green tone, pick a couple more of the outside guard petals off, or if you do like it, just be a little more mindful, kind of leave those on if you do want to kind of see that a little bit more in your arrangement. But let's start with the white base. I think it will really showcase that ombre color feel to you at home. It'll translate a little bit better in the video. And I also feel like this week, maybe let's create a little bit more of a traditional arrangement, kind of things on that same level so that color tone can really change as you see them together. So let's cluster our like flowers together and let them each showcase their beautiful tones. Let's start with our greenery, this beautiful Nandina. Am I saying beautiful too many times? It's just flowers, you know? All right, so Nandina is very branchy. It has many different pieces, and using it is going to be a little bit tricky at first, but just get started and it'll get easier for you, I promise. So we're gonna be picking off some lower leaves on branches that we don't want to be stuck into the water. But I feel that also you're gonna have an interesting time trying to decide what way to go with your Nandina because it can get quite branchy. So let's kind of break up these different pieces. Let's get them into our vase, and then let's kind of trim back those wild scraggly pieces, which you can do at the end of your arrangement or you can do before you start putting in those flower focals. So let's break this up a little bit more. Let's get as many pieces as we can going into that vase, cleaning up those lower green leaves, excuse me, and weaving it through our different branches that are in there to create a beautiful grid. Okay, this one actually, this little piece over here, I think would be quite lovely together. Just gonna keep branching these pieces apart. It'll feel like It'll feel difficult at first, but don't you worry. I know you'll get the hang of it very quickly. And just keep going. And you can even cut off some of those lower areas too. Nandina can be a little bit brittle. So if you are kind of pulling back those stems harshly, you might break a couple of your pieces, but don't worry. If you can't use them lower, you can use them in a little arrangement. Just cleaning up those greens. I think these two pieces are gonna be just way too short for our vase, so I'm gonna chop those off. That one's just a little too small, and then pull off those little greens. So now we have a nice piece that we can use. So you can rotate your vase just to get a nice different angle as you're coming in to add that greenery. Again, pulling off. And I really want you to crisscross those greens through. It'll really help hold your stems in place and hold up your arrangement. We want to give a nice angled cut on the end of our stems so that they can get a nice drink of water while they're sitting in the vase. All right, and now that I have used up all my pieces, I want this one to go on this side. Okay, what I want to do, again, we talked about trimming those back. So just find a spot where the branch is splitting, and then you can just trim that top part. If you want to leave it a little bit more gardeny, you are welcome to, but I think I'd like this arrangement to feel a little bit more cleaned up. And I think this piece is long enough to use separately. So I'm just gonna trim that off. Ooh. Stick that back in. Okay, I think we're doing well. I think this needs to come off. Okay, all right. Just very even kind of around the whole arrangement, giving us a nice base for those flowers. All right, lovely. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is start with this beautiful spray rose, cleaning up those leaves. Again, we don't want them in water. It makes the water kind of get dirty, have more bacteria, and then it kind of kills the flower faster. So if you do want your flowers to stay fresh longer, you can switch out the water and give them a fresh cut, and that'll really help your water. Clean water will really help your arrangement last longer. So these beautiful little spray roses, I'm just gonna do a little puff of air just to have them open up a little bit more. And they will continue to open up as your arrangement gets older. You want to put your flowers in at an angle so that you're not having everything stand straight up. It'll really help give you a wide breadth of an arrangement of flowers. And you may want to leave them a little bit longer to start out with, and then try to find that placement and then cut them a little bit shorter if you need to. Like if this was way out here, then maybe we'd cut a little bit more off. Okay, so after the peach, I think the next beautiful color tone would be these salmon cremones. Let's clean up those edges. I know cremones have a lot of little straggly pieces. So let's clean those off. And then what I'm gonna do is just put a cremone on either side of that spray rose. Still letting that spray rose be a focal, but adding that beautiful salmon texture. Let's do that same thing on the other side. Lovely, just beautiful. Okay, so then I think what we'll do is these cute little carnations. And a couple things that you can do, I'm gonna just trim this shorter so I don't break it while talking to you. But with carnations, you can really get them to open up by rolling that back end of the flower. It'll help the petals open up. You can also rip that green a little bit, and that will let the petals fall open a little bit more. Okay, see how much bigger it feels? All right, let's add that baby in. And I think what I might do is have this one just a little bit lower to kind of fill this area right here. But how lovely is that caramel antique carn next to that beautiful red tone in the Nandina. Lovely. All right. Let's do the same thing with our next carnation, rolling the back of those petals to get that to open up. Clearing off those greens. Wow. And then I hold my flower up to the table to kind of see about what height I want to cut it at, and then I check it out in the vase. Just make sure that you don't cut it too short. I think that's actually a lovely height for it. Maybe a little too tall. Cutting it at an angle. There, yeah, that's quite lovely. All right, now let's add that other carnation onto this side. Giving it a nice roll in this area right here. I'm just kind of pinching with both fingers on either side, kind of going like this. Oops, sorry, the flower's in the way. Like this, and then like this. And then just rolling the flower through. It subtly spins about a quarter of a turn each time I pinch it. Clean off those lower leaves. Beautiful, beautiful. Again, we want this one to sit a little bit lower than that previous flower, so I'm just holding it up to my table, cutting at the height of the table. That might be a little tall. Coming in at an angle, so if you're seeing it from the side, you can kind of spin it between your two fingers, your pointer finger and your thumb, to get it through that grid. Okay, all right. Now let's do these beautiful quicksand cremones. It's gonna take up a lovely, lovely space in here. I think what we want to do is kind of just repeat that one side a little bit on the top, maybe a little bit towards the back, and then on the back side. So I'm gonna cut that first one, not quite the same height as this cremone over here, just a little bit lower. perfectly. Okay. I think it might need to go just a smidge lower. And these cremones, their little edges, the little nubs on the side of the stem tend to get stuck if you need to put the stem in, see how it looks, and pull it out if it's not short enough, tall enough, wherever it needs to sit. But if you cut off those little nubs on the sides, it'll help pull out that flower a little bit easier. All right, so again, just threading that through my greenery, getting it through that grid, getting a nice tucked in spot for that flower. Then let's go to the next one. I want this one to be a little bit taller. Not quite as tall as that carnation maybe, but right in there. I do want my Nandina to stand up and kind of get peaks of that through the arrangement. So make sure you're not smushing it all down to the side. Really kind of find a nice hole to angle that flower through. Ooh. A little too well grid, too much, too thick of a grid. Anyways, it went through, it's fine. All right, there you have it. And then let's get this other one kind of tucked down. I think that will be quite lovely. Okay, clean off those greens, cut off the little nubs where those branches of the cremones came off if you need to. Let's cut this guy a little lower. Maybe a little lower than that. And again, we want to go through that grid, angle towards the back of the vase. Beautiful. Just a nice angled cut on the ends of those so that they're getting a lovely drink of water. Okay, and let's add those amnesia roses. All right, so amnesia roses aren't really a flower that you can spin just because they are such a soft, delicate rose, and they usually have a wiggly stem. So if you're not able to spin your roses, what I would just recommend is giving a little bit of air to them, kind of pull back on those petals, leave them out a little bit, and then just a nice big puff of air towards that center. And it'll open up. And let's get those tucked in here. I don't want them to get too short, but I do think that that is quite lovely. But I am also feeling like now this side of the arrangement is a little full. So maybe I'm gonna adjust this a little bit, get this other taller carnation. I think I need to trim this one down just a skosh to get it to move over to that other side so that we can have a little bit more space for these beautiful roses over here. I'm gonna put one a little bit taller in between this beautiful cremone and the rose, and then maybe I'll tuck the other one next to. And the greenery actually looks quite lovely on these if you'd like to leave that on. If it's not touching water, it's not harming anything, so don't worry about that. But if you like them, you can leave them on there. You could reflex a few of the petals if you'd like. The delicate petals on this rose may not stay when you reflex them, but all I'm doing is gently flipping the petal kind of inside out. I'm using my thumb to apply a little pressure from the bottom and my 2 fingers on the top of the petal to gently roll the sides of the petal backwards. And then I'm kind of doing a little scoop, which is just opening up that rose. And then I'm just going to add a little bit puff of air to open up that rose a little bit more. So I'm just going to tuck this one a little lower next to that first rose. I think this might need to be just a little lower, a little shorter. Just fill up this lovely space right here. And I'm going to trim back a little bit of this Nandina like we talked about. Just a little bit farther. It's just getting a little branchy over here. Okay. And don't worry if your petals, the reflex petals, flip back over. As your arrangement sits out on your counter, the roses will start to open more. Just naturally, they'll do that. But you can reflex them again if you want them reflexed and they flipped back over. It is up to you. There. Okay, how cute are those two just hanging out? And then I do have a little bit of an empty space right here. So I know that we have our ombre, but I do feel like this rose is going to be quite lovely in that little spot. So that's where I'm going to put it. We'll see if it looks lovely once it's there. If not, we can change it. But when you're making your arrangements, please do grab a couple photos and share them with us on Instagram at Flowers for Dreams. We would love to see what you're making at home. I would really love to see them. So please do share. Just finishing up, reflexing this one. And you can reflex the petal halfway if it'll stay. Sometimes it doesn't, but kind of gives it a little bit different of a look. All right. That one a little taller, not too tall. I think I want these to be a little separated from each other. All those cremones together are just making a wall there. I think that's a little cuter. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed your time this week. I know I have. And I hope you love your arrangement. Look at how beautiful that ombre is. I don't know what side to put it on. It's so stinking cute. I love spray roses. I love these cremones. They have been just so beautiful. And those antique carnations are just gonna last so long. All right, well, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.